My name is Lucius. I do not remember the sound of my mother's voice or the warmth of my father's embrace. I was taken from my village in Thrace when I was still a boy, not yet strong enough to carry a sword, but old enough to understand that my life no longer belonged to me. Now, I wake before the sun does. Every morning, the cold Roman dawn bites through the thin cloth I'm given as clothing. My bed is a pile of hay in the back of a storeroom, and I share it with rats who are braver than I am. I work on the estate of Gaius Septimus, a Roman nobleman with a temper as hot as Vulcan's forge and a heart colder than Neptune's sea. The other slaves and I move in silence at dawn. The overseer, Marcus, walks among us with a whip in his hand, the same way a wolf might wander among sheep. If you talk too much, you bleed. If you walk too slow, you bleed. If you look at him the wrong way, you bleed. My tasks change often. Today, I'm sent to the olive groves. The sun hasn't risen yet, but I can already feel it watching me from behind the hills. The baskets are heavy, the branches sharp. We must climb the trees, shake the olives loose, and collect them before midday. Then we move to the press, a giant stone wheel turned by hand or mule. The juice stains your hands dark and makes them ache, but I am not the only one who hurts. There's Mira. She came from Gaul, and her skin is still pale from the north. She walks with a limp since the accident with the wine barrel. Septimus didn't want to waste coin on a doctor, so the bone healed crooked. She never complains. She just winces and presses on. There's also Felix, not his real name. We call him that because he always smiles, even when the whip cuts deep. He believes, truly believes, that someday he'll be free, that Septimus will grant him manumission after years of good service. I want to believe him. Gods know I do. But I have seen the letters written on his back from beatings too many times. The days stretch into each other like the links of my chain. I mark them by the bruises. 1 for every insult, 2 for every failure, a 3rd if Marcus is bored. At night, I lie awake under the wooden beams of the storage barn, looking at the stars through cracks in the ceiling. I count them. 1 for every promise I've made myself. One day, I will buy my freedom. One day, I will find my sister, if she still lives. One day, I will not be Lucius the slave. I will simply be Lucius. The law says that a slave can earn his freedom. If he serves well, if he's loyal, if he saves enough to buy his release, a master may grant him a document called a libellus. Freedom, a chance to live as a citizen, a chance to choose who I am. But it's a dream few dare to chase. Septimus keeps us poor. He gives us no wages, only scraps. Still, I've hidden a coin or two when I can. I've traded favors. A repaired sandal here, a sharpened blade there. Quiet, careful steps towards something bigger. Sometimes I wonder, is it worth it? I see the old ones. Slaves too broken to dream, their eyes like dying embers. I ask myself if I'm simply walking toward the same fate, only slower. Then I remember the feeling of standing alone just for a moment at the edge of the grove, the wind in my face and no voice commanding me, no chain around my neck, that tiny taste of something real. That's why I don't give up. The sun rises over the fields now. Another day begins. My back aches. My hands are torn. But I'm still standing. I am still fighting. The day began like many others. Before dawn, we were roused from our beds by Marcus's shouting. His voice always comes before the whip. The household had guests coming, important ones. Senators, merchants, men with purple hems on their togas. The kind of men who could buy and sell 100 of us with a flick of their fingers. This meant the estate must shine like gold, and we, The ones who made it so must be invisible. I was sent to the villa's inner courtyard, scrubbing tiles already clean. Mira and 3 other girls were in the kitchen, preparing platters of roasted game, fruit, and honeyed wine. The sweat poured from them like rain. If they dropped so much as a fig, they'd be punished. If a guest complained, it would be worse. Felix was in the stables, brushing horses that belonged to men who'd never saddled them. He waved to me when he passed, smiled, that stupid, beautiful smile. I wanted to curse him for it. Instead, I nodded. It was all I could do. As the midday heat settled, I was called to help serve during the feast. A rare duty, usually reserved for the more polished house slaves. Perhaps they were short-handed, or perhaps Marcus simply wanted to humiliate me. Either way, I entered the triclinium with a tray of wine. I moved silently between the couches, pouring carefully, bowing my head, avoiding eye contact. One guest, a senator, drunk and red-faced, grabbed me by the arm as I passed. "Strong boy," he slurred. "Bet you'd do well in the arena." I froze. My heart thundered in my chest. I had heard the rumors that some masters sold their slaves to the ludus, the gladiator schools. Once you were in, your life expectancy shrank to the length of a blade. You fought until you died, or were lucky enough to win freedom in blood. I said nothing, only bowed deeper. After he laughed and released me, I returned to the kitchen, breathless. Mira saw my face and said nothing, just placed a piece of bread in my hand and squeezed my fingers. That small kindness nearly broke me. When the feast ended, the real work began. Cleaning, scrubbing, restoring the illusion that the estate had never been touched. As night fell, I was called again, this time to the peristyle garden. Septimus stood under the moonlight, arms folded. A servant of his had gone missing. Stolen wine, they said, and run off. He looked at each of us in turn, his eyes sharp as daggers. "Loyalty," he said, "is worth more than strength." He promised that anyone who reported the thief would be rewarded, and those who remained silent would share in the punishment. No one spoke. We knew who it was. A boy named Nico, only 17. He had spoken once of escaping to Ostia, stowing away on a ship. I never thought he'd try. But now, he was gone. Marcus lashed us all, one by one, 20 strokes each. Even Mira, even old Calvus, whose back split open like parchment. I clenched my teeth, refused to scream, but my vision swam, and the ground trembled beneath me when it was done. That night, in the barn, we didn't speak. We only breathed, shallow, painful breaths. Later, Felix crawled beside me and whispered. "I heard the old man speak of a reward," he said, "for good service. He's sending one of us to the market next week, alone." I turned to him. "You think that's the way?" He nodded. "The guards don't follow inside. I could disappear. You'll be hunted. I'd rather die running than live like this." I didn't sleep after that. I stared at the ceiling, imagining the streets of Rome, the smell of fresh bread, the noise of carts and merchants. I imagined being free, not like Felix and who dreamed wide and bold, but just having a name, a place, a moment that belonged to me. At dawn, I took the coin I'd hidden beneath the floorboard, the only one I had. I gave it to Felix. He looked at me like I'd gone mad. "Buy passage on a cart," I said. "If you're lucky, it might take you far enough." He didn't thank me. He only hugged me, and that was more than enough. The day Felix was to be sent to the market, the air was heavy with summer heat. You could feel it pressing down on the estate like a curse. Marcus handed me a list of items: grains, cloth, a new amphora of olive oil, and told me to accompany Felix to ensure he didn't get distracted. We left on foot. No guards, no cart. Just two slaves with a small pouch of coins and the burden of obedience stitched into our skin. Felix was quiet most of the walk. I could feel the storm building inside him. As we reached the gates of the marketplace, the noise washed over us. Hawkers shouting, children laughing, metal clinking, animals braying. A world that didn't know our names. A world that didn't care. He looked at me, then at the alley beside the baker's stall. "This is where I run," he whispered. I nodded once. "You have 3 minutes before they notice." "I don't deserve this," he said, voice trembling. "You do." And then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd like a drop of wine in a river. I stood still, held the coin pouch in both hands, counted the time by heartbeats. I walked the market alone, bought what we needed. When Marcus asked where Felix was, I said he fled. I begged him to stop, but he struck me and vanished into the crowd. It was close enough to the truth. Marcus beat me. Of course he did. But he didn't send the hounds or alert the authorities. No patrols came looking for Felix. In the eyes of the Empire, we were nothing. Replaceable. Lost like dust on the road. That night, as I lay on my straw mat, ribs aching, I wondered if Felix had made it out of the city. I imagined him on a cart, heading north, eyes wide with wonder, tasting air that didn't smell like wet stone and sweat. I prayed for him, or maybe just for myself, that I hadn't been a fool to believe. Days passed, then weeks. One morning, Septimus summoned me to his study. He was holding a scroll. I braced for punishment, another accusation, another whipping. Instead, he said, "Your behavior during the escape showed character. You resisted. You fulfilled your duties." He looked at me with sharp eyes. "I've decided to elevate your role. You'll assist the steward, learn to read, count, manage stock." It wasn't freedom, but it was closer than I'd ever been. That evening, I saw Mira. She was peeling vegetables, fingers stained, tired as always. I told her what had happened. She smiled, small and sad. "You deserve more," she said. "So do you." We didn't speak of Felix. We didn't have to. Months went by. I learned letters. I learned numbers. I even wrote my name, Lucius, on a scrap of parchment. It felt like carving my soul into the world. I never forgot what I was, but I began to imagine who I might become. Then, one morning, as the sun crept over the hills, a messenger arrived. He bore news for the master, but he also carried rumors. A young man had been seen in Ostia, working as a porter on the docks. Tall, quick, with a scar above his left eye. His name was unknown, but he sang Roman songs with a Gallic accent and spoke of vineyards. Felix. I never knew if it was truly him, but I chose to believe it, because sometimes hope is the only chain that doesn't choke. Now, I sit by the villa gate, scroll in hand, numbers before me, and I think of what might come next. A day when the parchment I carry is not an inventory, but my manumission, my freedom. My name is Lucius. I was born a slave, but I will not die one.